Today we're going to talk about our breastfeeding journey and tell you why these two things literally saved our breastfeeding life and how we wouldn't be doing it today if it wasn't for them. So I always wanted to breastfeed. We talked about it quite a lot before we had Noah, that sort of breastfeeding was the only way that we wanted to go. But it just didn't work out like that in the beginning. It wasn't how I imagined at all. So I had him in the hospital. It was a fairly traumatic birth, wasn't it?
It was,
to say the least. And they do the thing of giving you your baby straight away and trying to get them to latch, because that's the best way to do it. He had other ideas. Noah didn't want to latch. He was a tiny baby. He was only 5 pounds 4. He'd been through a traumatic few hours, and I think he was just absolutely exhausted and he wasn't interested in latching at all. So after about 45 minutes of trying to get him to latch, the nurses and midwife said to me, "You need to give him some kind of food," and said, "You're going to have to give him some formula." At which point I just broke down.
Don't mention the F word.
No, it's the thing. I have nothing against formula, but I felt immediately, an hour after I gave birth, I had absolutely failed in my role as a mum and, in my new job as being a mum to him. And on top of already feeling like I'd failed during labour because it didn't go how I wanted, I just felt like an absolute failure. So he had some formula. We agreed to give it to him from a cup because we thought that would be the best way. So
I forgot about that.
Yeah, the cup feeding.
And he had the tiniest mouth in the world as well, didn't he?
So we did cup feeding initially. Then the hospital actually said to us that we could have some donor breast milk, which at first I freaked out about that, didn't I? And I was like, that's disgusting. And then Jay said to me, why is it any different to giving him cow's milk to giving him another woman's breast milk? And actually, when you put it like that, there was no difference. So he had some donor breast milk as well. But the whole time this was going on...
Are you getting bored of mummy?
Do you want some milk already?
What are you saying is keep it tight?
Look at his lip, for goodness sake. But the whole time this was going on in the hospital, I was very aware that I wanted to keep trying to breastfeed. And the midwives, were supportive in that, which was great. But I found it so stressful. They were coming into my room every half an hour to see if we'd managed to feed him. And the answer was a resounding no, because he was still just not interested at all. But they were really helpful. Loads tried to help me hand express, which is not the easiest thing in the world, and things like that, and show me different techniques. But then there was one midwife who literally came in the middle of the night. We hadn't slept for over 24 hours. Well, no, probably coming up to 48 hours. I had this new hungry baby, and she came in and said, have you breastfed him yet? And I said, no, I haven't managed it. And I was really upset. I'm going to have to feed him now.
I think you're going to have to feed him, yeah.
The irony.
Talking about breastfeeding, and you're hungry. And what do you know?
Right, so he's quietly feeding. So let's crack on before he starts again. So yeah, this midwife came in the middle of the night and said, have you managed to breastfeed him yet? And I was quite upset, wasn't I? And I said, no, I haven't. And she kind of said, well, if you don't crack this soon, then you're never gonna do it. And at that point, I just burst into tears and had a massive meltdown at her. And I threatened to discharge us all, didn't I?
Yes.
In the middle of the night. But I think I was within my rights to do that. She really upset me. And Jay kind of said to her, do you know what? I think you should probably leave the room. And then another midwife came in and sort of apologised for her. So that wasn't good, and that really knocked my confidence. But then I kind of knew that if they let us go home, then I had more chance of trying to crack it at home. I know they say you're better off staying in hospital to establish feeding, but I was feeling so stressed there, wasn't I? Yeah. I thought it was better if I just went home, and I knew that there was 2 things I wanted to try that I thought could sort of save us and actually help us to feed. These little things, I don't know how clearly you can see them on camera, nipple shields. They're little silicone shields, if you've never seen them before, that basically you pop over your nipples, and we can use them if you've got sore nipples, but also they can really help baby to latch on, because I had a baby that didn't want to latch and sort of wasn't learning how to latch, and a good old electric breast pump. Now, to this day, I still feel incredibly guilty that I didn't manage to give him any colostrum, because there's a reason that everyone says that colostrum is liquid gold. I didn't manage to feed him for the first 2 days. But by day 3, when my milk came in, I knew that if I started pumping and encouraging it to come in, then I had more of a chance of getting him to feed. And everyone in the hospital said, no, you don't want to do that. That's the wrong way to do it. Well, day 3, I did that. And that's the day I actually managed to get him to feed for the first time. And I felt like the proudest person in the whole world, didn't I? And
how's your throat?
My throat's not good. But I think that just goes to show you have to do what's right for you. And it's not necessarily right what the medical profession say to you. They're there to help, but they don't necessarily know your body and your baby and your situation. The reason I wanted Jay here for this vlog was to kind of maybe add a male perspective, because during that time as well, obviously I had to keep giving him formula, otherwise he would have starved. So while I was doing all of this and pumping the milk, I had to do that. And I felt like the worst human being in the world for doing that. And I don't know why. You were much more rational with the whole thing than me, weren't you?
No. I think from a male's point of view, I just wanted you to get some rest. It's a tiring thing having a baby, as we all know. And I think that it was just a case of, let me give him some formula, you go to sleep, get some rest, and then hopefully when you come back you're a bit more positive and a bit more awake. And it does stress you out. This sort of thing stresses you out.
Yeah.
And I think as well that what frustrates me with breastfeeding is that there's no let up, because if you are continuously breastfeeding, it doesn't matter that I can give him a bottle of formula. The thing is, you've got boobs that are about to burst.
Yeah.
So the milk has got... Sorry, buddy. So the milk has got to come out regardless. And then there's the pressure of, if you've pumped, then it's using it within a certain amount of time. So that actually, there is no right or wrong answer. And it is quite stressful, breast, formula, combining the two. So I just think, just doing the best we can. And as you probably know, if you're in a similar situation, you do the best you can and you do what's right for you. And don't beat yourself up about having the odd bottle of formula, especially if it gives you a break.
So where we are today, after all of the drama, I carried on feeding with the shields, and actually they were a massive success. I had to try different sizes and things, because some of them can be quite uncomfortable. But we fed exclusively breastfeeding, no formula, with the shields until 5 weeks. I did decide that I wanted to come off them because they are a faff. You have to keep sterilising them. And he's looking out the window while I'm feeding him, so paying attention. They are a faff. So we actually paid a lactation consultant to come around to the house, and she came around for 2 hours and just gave me the confidence, and showed me how I could feed him without them, showed me loads of different latching techniques and things. I then had 2 weeks of hell where I had to go cold turkey because I hadn't really, fed properly before. So I had to go through the whole really, really, really painful nipples thing, didn't I? And I sort of was back to square one. I thought, I can't do this. And I was crying, and every feed was painful, especially on one side, because I have one side for some reason that is still to this day painful, and he doesn't like that side as much. But got to about 8 weeks, and I suddenly thought one day, oh wow, I'm feeding without any pain, and I'm actually enjoying it. So it did take 8 long weeks to get there, but we did get there. Now we're on 13 weeks, still breastfeeding exclusively. I want to feed him till he's at least 6 months. Still have the odd day of pain. I did actually have a bit of bleeding and a crack yesterday. So it's still going on. But ultimately, he's putting on weight. He's happy. I'm happy. We're in a routine now.
Yeah.
I think. Are you happy with how it's all going?
Of course I'm happy.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, totally. And that's the thing, like I said before, I'm happy if you're happy. I know we're not married yet, but happy wife, happy life.
Really?